Things like this usually don't happen in a community like ours. It's very tragic.
Investigators release autopsy reports today for 8 members of an Ohio family killed execution style.
We begin tonight with a deadline that has passed for the mother of 2 missing children from Rexburg.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amanda and we talk about all things true crime related. Sorry about that little break. I was a little MIA for a moment there. Like I said in my Kata Scott video, my husband was sick. Well, he so nicely got me sick on Halloween night and I'm still fighting it. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, so I apologize if it's a tad annoying. But the case that I want to talk about today is that of Maleesa Mooney. Her accused killer, Magnus Humphrey, was in court for his preliminary hearing. Now, this is a little bit older, from early to mid-October, but I still want to get you guys the details. I noticed while trying to cover this preliminary hearing that there's like only 1 or 2 outlets that were covering this, and that really... Nothing frustrates me more, because when this case first hit the news, it was like everywhere over, at least on the West Coast. Everybody was reporting on this situation, I'm sure because of the details that we'll discuss that we learned immediately. But it just frustrates me now that when this is going through the court system, no one wants to report on it. It does seem like a few have afterwards, but I meant like actually during the preliminary hearing. But I'm going to break down those details that we learned in the preliminary hearing. First, I just want to start with a quick recap of the case so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So 31-year-old Maleesa Mooney, she was living in Los Angeles, California, and working as a real estate agent and a part-time model, part-time escort. Now, when the case first broke, it was described that she was a part-time model, not really mentioning much of the escort, but it did come out in trial that she was also a part-time escort. Now, after Maleesa Mooney's mother wasn't able to contact her, she would call police and ask for a welfare check to be done. When officers arrived, they made the heartbreaking discovery. At just 31 years old, Maleesa Mooney was found dead inside her apartment on September 12, 2023. Months would go by with few answers until February of 2024, when police would announce the arrest of 41-year-old Magnus Humphrey. At first, investigators really didn't share much about who Magnus Humphrey was or what tied him to the case. But during his preliminary hearing, we finally started to get more of a clear picture about what may have happened to Maleesa. I just wanted to quickly reiterate, like I said, only a few articles were commenting on what happened in the courtroom, so I don't have all the details, I'm sure. And I do have to mention that everyone discussed is innocent until proven guilty. Magnus Humphrey just faced his preliminary hearing, which is not his trial, so he is still presumed innocent until he's proven guilty at a trial or if he takes a plea deal. He's currently charged with 2 felonies, murder and torture. Now, during testimony, we heard from Officer Kevin Hugh, one of the officers who responded to conduct the welfare check at Maleesa's apartment. While he was on the stand, body cam footage from that day was played in court. It showed officers stepping into her unit that February afternoon. It was quiet, still, and immediately unsettling. As the officer looked around, he noticed things that should have been in the refrigerator were sitting on the counter. So with that, he walked up to the refrigerator, opened the door, and that's when he saw her, a woman inside wearing a leopard print dress with her arms and her head twisted unnaturally. You can hear the officer in the camera footage letting out a shocked noise before slamming the refrigerator door as he calls out, "Homicide! We have a homicide!" before he discusses with his partner how much that scared the shit out of him. Investigators later found clumps of her hair on the floor and in the trash, along with stains on the wall and carpet that appeared to be dried blood. While he was on the stand, the officer also confirmed something else that stood out. The man charged in connection with her death, Magnus Humphrey, has a criminal record. He has been convicted of multiple felonies in the Midwest, including sexual assault and false imprisonment, and he was actually on federal probation at the time of his arrest. Next, the prosecutor would call one of Humphrey's former girlfriends to testify, something that, of course, the defense immediately objected to, arguing that it wasn't relevant to the case. They said that situations were completely different since Humphrey and Maleesa had only known each other a few short days and that their relationship was mostly transactional. The prosecution pushed back, though, explaining that the two may had only been seeing each other a short time, but it was spent every moment together during those days, and they also pointed out that Humphrey had a pattern of violence towards women, which made this testimony important to hear. The judge would allow it, and for privacy reasons, news articles do have her name, but I'm just going to refer to her as Jane. Jane testified that she and Humphrey dated for about 3 to 4 years and that they lived together in Minnesota for about 7 months, during which time she became pregnant with her child. Sadly, though, the baby was born 4 months premature and did not survive. She would go on to explain that the couple broke up in August of 2009, and just a day later, Humphrey would come back to her home demanding the engagement ring that he gave her. She told him that she didn't know where it was, and instead of leaving, he reacted violently. Jane testified that prior to this incident, Humphrey abused her twice, but those were both short bursts of rage, but this time she said it was different. It didn't stop. She told the court that the attack lasted around 3 hours, during which time Humphrey hit her, kicked her, whipped her with a charging cable, and smashed a glass picture frame over her. I guess he allegedly hit her with an urn too that had their child's ashes in it. At one point, he even took a pair of pliers and said that he was going to pull her hair out, saying that she'd be bald by the end of the day. Jane went on to say that during this attack, Humphrey told her to give him a 90-second dissertation on why he shouldn't kill her. She said that she just stared at him because she didn't know what a dissertation was. At one point during the beating, she testified that Humphrey called his great-grandmother, and he told her what he was doing and said that he basically was calling to say goodbye because they're going to lock me up for what he's doing to the girl, speaking about Jane. According to Jane, the great-grandmother stayed on the phone trying to calm her down, saying that everything was going to be okay and that she'd pray for her. Could you imagine that? Calling your great-grandmother to tell her you're basically beating a woman to death and you're going to be going to jail for it? Could you imagine having that type of relationship, that's just normal to do to your great-grandmother? I don't have any grandparents alive, but I'm sure if something like that happened, or if my husband did that to his grandmother, she would be mortified. Thankfully, though, Humphrey did not kill Jane, obviously. She said that before he left, he took her debit card and kept demanding her PIN number. He also threatened that if she told anyone what happened, he would kill her mother and her dog. As soon as he left, Jane would call police. Humphrey was charged with assaulting her and later convicted, even though she didn't testify at trial. I'm assuming that they had enough evidence between witness statements and body cam footage. They said that she didn't even need to take the stand to testify against him, and that brings us back to, in my mind, the case against Kenan King and what the DA said that they should have done. I know hindsight's 20/20. It's just very frustrating in that case that it was done. You see it done in other cases elsewhere. From there, another witness was called to testify, somebody who would give more of a backstory between Humphrey and Maleesa and who could describe the days leading up to her death. Again, I don't want to use her real name. These people have already gone through enough, and they're just trying to get justice for their friend. So we're just going to call her Katie. Katie testified that she was a friend of Maleesa and that the two of them worked as part-time escorts. She said that she also knew Magnus Humphrey's brother, which was how everyone ended up crossing paths. She said one night in February, Katie and Maleesa made plans to meet up with Humphrey and his brother at a bar in Santa Monica, and according to her testimony, the group spent the rest of the night partying, doing drugs, and just having a good time. It really seemed like Humphrey and Maleesa hit it off. Katie said that for the next 5 days, Maleesa and Humphrey were inseparable. From what I understood, Humphrey was in town visiting his family, his brother and his father, who apparently he'd been estranged from. They lived in Los Angeles while he's from Minnesota. During the visit, he even brought Maleesa to a family barbecue at his dad's house in Long Beach, California, where the two were seen kissing and taking selfies together. KD spent some of that time with them and noticed moments where Humphrey became possessive, saying things like, "That's my girl, that's my woman." There were also conversations, I guess, believe it or not, between Maleesa and her about this whirlwind romance that Maleesa got swept in, that maybe marriage was something that they would be doing, Humphrey and Maleesa. I'm sure we've all been there. Maybe not the marriage talk, because I don't know about that, but I think we've all been in those relationships where we get kind of swept away in our emotions and we get lost in the fact that this isn't reality. Katie said that after a few days, though, she started getting tired of the situation. She noticed that Humphrey wasn't paying for anything, and during all the time they spent together, it was Maleesa who was covering everything: the drinks, the groceries, and the cocaine that he was reportedly using daily. Text message and testimony showed that KD told Maleesa it didn't make sense, that it was crazy to be sleeping with a man and paying for everything on top of it. She said that she told Maleesa to ask him for something back, like a gift card or anything, just basically to see how he would respond. Now, Maleesa would text KD back saying he doesn't have it. Jumping ahead, though, we would learn from LAPD officer testimony that on September 7th, around 5 p.m., Maleesa had actually texted Humphrey two links. One was for a set of pots and pans, and another was for like a General Electric appliance. The officer believed it was a toaster oven. And after that text exchange, Maleesa was never seen alive again. The following day, September 8th, Humphrey was caught on security footage leaving her apartment building, carrying and throwing away a black trash bag. Prosecutors say that after leaving her apartment, he drove back to his father's home in Long Beach to return his father's car, and then the next day he caught a flight back home to Minnesota. Also taking the stand was a forensic pathologist from the LA County Medical Examiner's Office who testified about the autopsy results. He said that the marks on her back that indicated she was whipped, possibly by a charging cable. Some of her hair had been pulled out, and she had injuries to her face and back, showing she had been hit with significant force. He testified that they weren't certain about the exact cause of death, saying it was most likely asphyxiation, either from a rag that had been shoved about 3 inches into her mouth or from being placed inside the refrigerator while she was unconscious. So at this point, investigators can't say for sure whether she was alive when she was put inside that refrigerator. Now, during closing arguments, the defense claimed that there was no evidence of premeditation, saying that at most this was an emotional outburst, possibly triggered when Maleesa asked Humphrey for money. But the district attorney completely disagreed with that assessment. She said that this was not some sort of emotional outburst. This was a cold, calculated, and premeditated act of violence. The DA pointed to Jane's testimony, noting that Humphrey's actions mirrored what he had done years earlier. The charging cable that he whipped them with, the clumps of hair that were pulled out, the same pattern of control and cruelty. Prosecutors also revealed that a pillowcase was found in Maleesa's closet and it had dried blood on it. They believe that Humphrey confined her in that closet before killing her, which according to testimony was something that the ex-girlfriend said was done to her as well. Now again, like I said, there was only a few articles. I did not see this covered anywhere else in the 4-day hearing other than like the closing arguments when it was mentioned. But with the limited coverage, it just paints an overall picture that Magnus Daniel Humphrey is a violent and dangerous man. The judge agreed that there was enough evidence for the case to move forward to trial, and Humphrey remains held without bail. From what I read, the prosecution has not yet decided whether or not they're seeking the death penalty. I'm not sure when they will. I thought there was some sort of limit on that, but every state's different, I'm sure. For now, we'll just have to see how it plays out, and of course, I'll definitely keep you guys updated as soon as there's more. Hopefully, justice for Maleesa isn't too far away. Now, if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Both are free ways that help me out. If there's other ways that you'd like to help me out, they are linked below in the description box, including my Patreon, where I post extra content and case updates. But with that, that's all I have for this case. Until the next video, stay safe out there. This world can be a really ugly place sometimes.